Major League Baseball legendary analyst, play game caller, Doug Glanville joins the show. Doug, appreciate you, brother. Hey, your voice is unbelievable, man. That voice carries with my whole household, man, for a long, long time, brother.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks you. It's been quite a run, so I'm very grateful for it. Can't believe I'm still around the game, man. I got drafted in 1991.
Damn, I was a sophomore. I think you got me by about 6 years, man. You got me by about 6 years. Smitty wasn't even born.
I was born in 94.
God damn.
Oh, man.
Doug, he make us feel old, man. It's crazy. I got to ask you right out the gate, man. We've had like Brett Boone, a couple of major cats on who just got a hitting job with the Rangers. I want to ask you, what's your biggest takeaway from baseball now and then, with the bases size extended, the pitch count, everything that's happening, man, in baseball? You like it or not? Because I'm before you answer, I've been to a couple games, a couple former players of mine that I coached football, obviously, and played football, Smitty, but I had a player I recruited who's played and comes on the show quite often, plays for the Cardinals, a relief pitcher, been with the Yankees, Angels, etc. Keenan Middleton. But Keenan's like, man, the game is totally different growing up than it was now, and it takes you 3 hours to get into a park, 3.5 to get out, and the game only lasts an hour and a half. So I just want to throw all that at you, but go ahead. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I like the game today. I mean, I still love baseball. It's a different version for sure, because first of all, when I got drafted, there weren't even that many teams, right? So expansion. And the fact that now they are willing to go back and revisit stuff and change the rules. I mean, that was unheard of back in the day. We were very rigid about this is how it is. Just go back to 2000. I was still playing, and Sandy Alderson, Mets, in terms of executive legend, he was involved in changing the strike zone. And I remember he said, okay, we're going to change the strike zone. We're not calling the high strike anymore. We got to elevate it. And this is going to change. The umpires are going to learn how to do this. And it lasted 2 months. I mean, they just couldn't do it. They didn't have the technology. So the efforts to change also wasn't met with the technology available then. But now, I mean, how do you not have replay when people look at the scoreboard? They're like, I see it in 35 different angles. You got to use what's available. So, I'm happy the game is adapting. The length of the game was getting out of control. I mean, guys, batting gloves and all this, it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, taking forever. So I think it's good that they moved it along to give it a tempo and a rhythm and a dependability.
No doubt. I got to ask you, I'm a West Coast guy, LA, obviously, and the Dodgers winning it, the payroll, all this stuff that's going on. And I think them and the Phillies, I think, still have the best record in baseball. Some people could argue, they're not doing as good as the roster shows. Is this the team that can go get hot and break that 0-1 Mariners record still, or is it too late? Brett Boone said he's very worried. He thought this team was so loaded that it could do that. Is this a team that's going to go and have 10, 11, 12-game win streaks all season long and separate from the Padres, which have also been very formidable, along with the Giants? I mean, this West, NL West over here is seeming to be the best in baseball, possibly. Is this Dodger team that loaded?
They're loaded, yes. And the thing is, the problem is they're not healthy. So because of that, I have to say no, that it's going to be hard for them to go on the run because of that. Because these teams, by the way, the other ones are really good, and they've gotten better. Corbin Burns, the Diamondbacks, Padres, Giants, their best acquisition was like Buster Posey, So, these teams, there's no margin for error for the Dodgers. So do they have the talent and capability? Absolutely. Ohtani comes back and pitches. They could do anything, but the challenge is you're playing in this really tough NL West, and it's hard to just sweep all those teams out of the way. We remember a season a couple of years ago, Dodgers were, what a year. They got banged up, and the Diamondbacks just wiped them out in three straight. And the Padres knocked them out the next year. So they play, and they're going to be in it. And Dave Roberts is always trying to figure out, okay, the regular season is great, but we're expected to win it all. And that is a whole different kind of season in the postseason.
No doubt.
No doubt. Let me ask you this, all the talk, I feel like last couple of years, especially for the novice fans, always around Shohei Ohtani and how great he is. Obviously, you've been around the game, played the game at a high level for a long time. Like, where do you, I guess, like, how great is he really, like, in your eyes? Like, is he already an all-time great right now? If he retired today, how do you rank him?
You've never seen anything like it. I mean, and sure, there's players, I'm playing Stratomatic baseball with the Negro Leagues, and I see, okay, Hilton Smith, he played on both sides. I understand. But the fact is, like, in today's game, when no one was doing this for so long, and Ohtani comes in and is the best hitter, right? And he basically, I don't know if he pitched against himself, what would happen, but you're talking about two ends of the spectrum of greatness. I mean, this guy started the All-Star game and then played in the All-Star game and then is in the home run derby. Like, what? So yeah, you're seeing something you just don't see. And it's not one of those things you don't see and it's like weird. It's just like greatness times 10. So I don't, you can't, he has his own category. I call it, the only adjective to describe him is his own name. He is Ohtanic because it's singular. And
like
that's all I can do with him.
What is he going to pitch? Is he going to pitch this year?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he'll find a way because part of it is he wants to pitch. And that's the thing about Ohtani. Sometimes it's like understated. This guy is a hyper competitive, wants to be great, wants to do things you've never seen before. And pretty much every game he does. And the thing about his pitching is like he has the capability of being a frontline starter. He's been a frontline starter. And if you look at the Dodgers with their injuries, they're gonna need that arm. So maybe some of the best acquisition they might have is Ohtani just getting healthy, right? And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, we have an ace now.
And that'll probably move Kershaw to like even the bullpen possibly. That's how great this lineup is, how deep they are. Huh?
Oh man, I mean, well, I remember David Cohn, first series we did the Dodgers on radio this year, on TV and radio, and he asked Dave Roberts, like, look, I know you're top 5 starters, but what about 6 through 10?
Yeah.
And it was like, that was an all-star team, dude. That was like, so, and they're all beat up right now, but they have so much depth because even last year, the Dodgers would not have been able to do what they did without acquiring Jack Flaherty from the Tigers, right? They were able to make a move. Yeah. So part of it is the fact that they're great, but part of it is what are they willing to do at the trade deadline? Are they willing to make a move? And they are all in. And the fun thing is I think all those teams in the division are all in. And so a lot of buyers and maybe not that many sellers.
Let me ask you this. I mean, we're talking about how great the Dodgers, are this year, especially when healthy. Who would you say, though, is the biggest threat? Like, all things even, everybody healthy. Who's the biggest threat to the Dodgers this year?
I mean, it's probably in their own division. They have to get through the NL West, and that is nothing nice right now. So I would say it starts there. Certainly, if they get out of that, you still dealing with the Phillies and the Mets. You still got, the Braves are like, wait a minute now, we just figured it out,
Yeah.
And so the NL is nasty. So you gotta really play, and you gotta be able to be on fire when you go into the postseason. And don't sleep in the American League. When you talk about the Tigers, you're like, where did these dudes come from? Well, they were a young team that they basically traded away their veterans near the trade. They're like, yeah, see you later, we're done. Let's see what these young guys can do in AAA. Well, these young guys took them all the way deep into the postseason. And now they told us, we talked to AJ Hinch, their manager, opening day. He's like, well, we're probably a run prevention team, play defense. We got to use 13 guys to beat their 9. We got to outmaneuver in the 7th inning. And what are they doing? They're beating teams to a pulp. Their offense is like, why are they so good? But they are absolutely doing it in all facets of the game. And I don't know if they're going to stop.
No doubt. Are the biggest shocker so far, good or bad? I know you mentioned Atlanta. They started off slow, 0-8 or whatever, 0-9. What's the biggest surprise to the season? Is it those Tigers, or are you surprised a little bit about Seattle? There's some teams out there that have kind of been shockers. Cubs. I mean, where are you at with this biggest surprise right now?
Well, actually, I'm going to put a circle over the American League East. Like, this is a team that we're just accustomed to just having like the top echelon just kind of running away. Baltimore Orioles, like what's happening? And now you're sitting there going, wait a minute, is the AL Central better than the East? It's like, I don't know. It's like the numbers kind of bear out. Like Royals are good, Guardians are good, Twins went on a run. So that's the shocker right now, like how like upside down the divisions are. And, I think those teams are actually pretty good.
Nah, that's a good point. I'm old school, Doug. I want to bring this up particularly because I obviously coaching hard and getting after these kids and hate me now, love me later. But my job was to get them where they could not get themselves. I think we live in this player empowerment era, football, baseball, basketball, where they get more money than God. And we're like, oh, man, they can sit there and tell the coach what to and not to do. It's crazy world, right? The hierarchy, I think, has been flipped in player empowerment. But we saw over this last week, Juan Soto gets to the plate, having a little rough patch. The coach kind of moves him around in the lineup. I don't know if you've seen this clip right here. I'm sure you have, but Shohei Bailey, he refused to swing, Doug. He gets to the plate and basically tells the manager, this is the message I'm sending you. I won't swing. Similar to what we saw in football with Brandon Marshall dropped every ball in practice years ago in the NFL. Where are we at with this? Like, this is a showing up the manager. Like, you already had a little bat out with the Yankees leaving and coming here. What's going on with this type of thing that we're seeing more and more nowadays?
Yeah, look, that was really baffling. I mean, and I don't know, like the player in me says, okay, sometimes you face a pitcher, you don't pick up the ball. I had trouble the first time I went to Fenway. I felt like I was like couldn't see anything. First time I went to the Astrodome when I faced Randy Johnson, he was coming out of white shirts. I was like, I can't see anything. Okay, I can work with that. But I think the context of what Soto's dealing with, and yes, is it self-inflicted to a certain degree? Yeah, he chose to leave the Yankees, and that wasn't going to be something Yankee fans are going to take lightly, especially when it was so beautiful, his family and everything went well. And he made a decision, and he's well entitled to do it. Like, I'm going to get the most money. I'm going to get the most perks. I don't care between 700 and 701 million. I'm going to 701. Like, that's his calculation was that, and it's a different world in say Met land versus Yankee land, and so there's part of it that I think there's a pressure to be like, all right, there's always like, okay, I want this guy to fail, the element, right? Like, all right, I'm going to just like keep. Is it actually the change in the environment, or is like what we're trying to make it to be for him? There's all that you have to navigate as a player. But whichever way, it's real, right? It's like it's fair to criticize like, hey, your performance and what you're supposed to be, not only because of the contract, because your history tells us this is the player you are. And so if you're not living up to just that, forget about the numbers, the money, then you're sitting there saying, well, you're supposed to do more. But the thing is, the Mets are good, so it's like if he gets it going to be consistent, or you can't underestimate his presence. We've talked to Carlos Mendoza all the time, and how well he kind of gets everybody else locked in, because typically he's on every single pitch is like the end of the world. And that's what was different to me in that clip you showed.
What do you do for a guy that's getting $700+ million? What do you tell that guy as a manager? Like,
yeah, man, you got to, and this is more for your forte, JB. But the thing is, like, it's like figuring out how to get to these players, right? And when you said player empowerment, right? They have leverage. They can do a lot. They can be like, your college, you go to the portal, there's all these ways that you can not have to go through something, right? And then there's nowhere to go for Soto until he can opt out in a few years, I guess. But that's right. Being able to go through the problem and come out of it with the experience, and instead of now having all the options of going around or over it or moving the problem out of the way, right? You do lose something with that approach. And I think that, as like, I remember talking to Dave Roberts, and you mentioned this. Dave Roberts says, like, with Betts and all these superstars, I have to figure out like what motivates them. And Mookie Betts is very motivated by trying a new challenge and going to a new position. And it seems like ridiculous. He won all these Gold Glove awards in right field, but you're saying that's what he needs. And a manager being in tune with that still has to figure it out, even though you look at this paycheck and you said you should have all the motivation you need. But as athletes, you still there's still a purity of like what drives you, and managers have to tap that.
No doubt. I want to dive into something personal real quick. Your career, people, I don't know realize how good you were, but like you trailed, I think, Luis Gonzalez in hits one year. 99?
Yeah.
And that was a hell of a season. I just wanted to showcase that. What was that season like for you? With 204 hits, I mean, that's an unbelievable year. I think you batted 325. Where you at with that season as far as that? Was that your best season, even statistically, or did you have seasons where it may not have been statistically, but as athletes, like, nah, I did X, Y, and Z in 2000 or in 97. Is that your best season, or no? You had other ones you think better?
No, man, that's the best season. There's no doubt. And I felt it, going along. It was like every time I got in the batter's box, I was like 2 or 3 pitches ahead of the pitcher. I knew it was coming. I knew how to approach it. And if I didn't get a hit my first at bat, I was like, I'm going to hit the second at bat. Like I just didn't. That's how I felt. And it felt like it was always happening. I mean, I remember the Cubs. I played with the Cubs for a while. And a few years at leadoff, I never swung at the first pitch starting the game. I was, rarely. So I knew the scouting report was that Glanville never swings. Let's lay a fastball in there. So I waited all year for the Cubs to come to Philadelphia. And Mark Clark was pitching, and he just laid one in. I hit a bullet right up the middle, or base hit. And then he got the ball back, and he looked in the dugout like what are you doing? Like he said, this guy doesn't swing, So that's how I was thinking all year. And I think the thing that changed in my life was my dad, the next spring training, that 99, 2000 going into the new season, I just wanted to rinse and repeat. And my dad had a major stroke in spring training. And for the next 3 years, it was an absolute nightmare of him in and out of the hospital. And I just was not the same player. I was trying to be, but I felt like my mind was all over the place. And so it was really hard to get back to that. And then by the time, he passed the last game of the season in 2002, the day I got my 1,000th hit of my career. I mean, it was surreal. He passed away. And then it was sort of like, wow, those were kind of all the best years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything for my experience with my dad, but it was so hard to figure out how to be the best version of myself on the field when I was so concerned about his well-being.
Nah, you're like rarefied air, like Tony Gwynn. I'm just trying to equate there or put some correlate this. Like he had 220 hits, I think was his highest, and then he hit, I think, 212, 218 a couple times. Like you're in rarefied air though. Once you get to that 200 mark, it's pretty damn hard to do, right? Like how hard is it to have multiple 200 hit seasons as a Tony Gwynn, a Wade Boggs, these guys like that? Is that just unbelievable?
It's unbelievable. Like Ichiro did it like 10 years in a row. I mean, it's just like my mind just blows up. I mean, I had to obviously average more than a hit a game, and I actually missed time at the end. I got hit on the knee and I missed a bunch of games at the end. So I played like 154, 152 or something. So I actually missed a lot of time. So it was like a hit and a half a game. It was just like go. And it's very hard because these pitchers are adjusting to you, trying all kind of tricks. And nothing worked on me that year. Nothing worked. I ran into Al Leiter like the next year, maybe a union meeting or something. And Al is kind of unfiltered dude. And I for whatever reason, I wore him out. He couldn't get me out. Yeah. So I saw him, and after the 2000 season or 01 or something, he said, "Man, what happened to you, man? You used to be a tough out." Like that was the first thing he said. I was like, "Thanks, I appreciate that." Well, by the way, my dad was sick for so. Yeah, it was one of those moments, but I really felt a step ahead of everybody.
Nah, no doubt.
Man, that's amazing, man. I want to end it like this. We always ask this, and whenever we have different athletes from different sports on here, is hitting a baseball the hardest thing to do in sports, period? Whether it's football, basketball, golf, is hitting a baseball the hardest thing to do?
I mean, I'm biased on all this, so I'm going to say yes. I mean,
I think it is, though.
I mean, yeah. I mean, can I lift 500 pounds at the Olympics? Absolutely not. But so I have such a deep respect for all these athletes. Yeah. Gymnastics. I could name. I watch anything, and I love sports. So, but yeah, hitting a ball, man, it's just impossible. And because I know that, I had the 325, but what does that mean? That was like 67.5%. I was out.
That's the crazy part. People don't understand that. Like, that was an amazing season. That's amazing, right? To do what you did, but that means you failed more than half the times at bat. And I was locked in. Like I felt like they never got me out. Right. That's how I felt. And so I was hitting line drives, and so it's just that I think because of baseball, you look at these sample sizes and you say, okay, I was 1 for 4 that day. You have to have this perspective that it's not that one at bat. It's like it's the whole thing, and you're looking at a series, and your just mindset is such that he got me out. But I learned that he does this the next time. And I'll give you a couple examples, like Randy Johnson. This dude, he comes set with his glove, and then whenever he stepped back, he started to turn it when it was a slider. He, just like pitchers get into habits, right? Wow. So he started tilting, and I was like, okay. But the problem is you don't want to tip it off, but you also don't want him to know because he's going to hit you in the back. So, you had to play that game. And I finally got him where I realized that the first pitch
with a runner in scoring position, he was going to throw like a lazy slider, get me over the plate. I just started to see the patterns, right? And sure enough, I got to base it up the middle. And you could see, was like, was he looking for that? And I was like, yes, I was. So, but the next game, that's a back foot slider. That's fastball in. So it's cat and mouse all the time. And, one quick story, Greg Maddux, this guy was impossible. And he would get you out and you never felt like bad about it. You're like, oh, okay, I could hit. There's guys you face that get you out that you feel like you'd never hit again. Right. And I remember one day I used to do this crazy stretching routine, the first pitch, and do this whole thing. And I would look down, and that's how I started the game, the stretch. So one time I did this, and I looked up, the pitch was halfway there. Maddox had already thrown it because he watched and figured out that I was in the box and therefore a live hitter, but not looking. So he quick pitched me, and it was 0-1. I was like, so after that, I had to get in the box, like all looking at him and so.
Damn.
So, it's just that I love that about the game, and that's why it's hard to repeat. And I give all the credit to these great, consistent hitters that just defy people's adjustments to them.
I got two things for you, and I can't thank you enough for hopping on. Number one, the elephant in the room, the Pete Rose controversial. Let's put him up for a Hall. I think 27 is when they can actually vote and say put him in or not. But it's ironic. I said it years ago. I said it. They'll wait till he passes to even clear him. He even said it on Brett Boone's own podcast, and I had Brett on afterwards and was like, "Yeah, man." He actually said it. He's like, "Oh, they'll put me in after I die." Where are you at with this? Like, is this kind of like a chicken shit move? Is it a bad look for Major League Baseball, Manfred? Like, how's that work? I'm kind of like, it's upsetting because see that guy, just do it already or don't. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, man, this is complicated, and I could say that I do think there was an understanding or some tone set that when he passed, they would reconsider it. I think that was kind of always out in the ether, and I think that the challenge is there's so many layers to it because first of all, there's no question he bet on baseball, and the thing about him betting on the team that win, that doesn't matter to me because it's like in a series the compromises you can make when you're only trying to win that one game.
So you're saying even though it's on his own team, that means nothing to you. That it's still betting.
Nothing, because when you read the Dowd report, people got death threats because of it. Like, so I'm hitting. All right, I'm playing to win, betting on my team to win. I'm in the batter's box. I need to hit a home run here or whatever I need to do. I don't know that I'm a pawn in this game, and then all of a sudden, like, I get death threats because I screwed up in the moment. Like, it's like you're putting a lot of people at risk here. That's not just you. So I think there's that element. And by the way, like, okay, it's a series, right? So I have a closer who already threw 3 days in a row or 2 days in a row. I want him to win this game. So I'm going to put all my eggs in that basket. I don't care about tomorrow. It's like, and by the way, the first in 87, when he was betting, they were like 46 and 36 when they started the season. And he made a whole lot of money, a whole lot of money in his team. But then what happened, right? So because you blew out your closer or you used them 10 times on games you bet on. And he was betting on all the other games as well. So you're really compromising the game and make people think it's fixed. And I'm out there trying to do an honest job.
I have none but respect for you saying that because you're played. Like, is this the sentiment of you guys in the fraternity? Like, is the sentiment, because I asked Brett the same thing, and he's kind of on the same thing as you are. Like, it's still like football for me and Smitty. Like, man, the tush push for us. Like, that's the argument. He wants to keep it. I'm like, get rid of it. And I'm an offensive guy, ex-quarterback. I'm like, nah, get rid of it. Defense can't. It's not fair to the defense if you can't combat it. Is that similar to this? Like, you guys played it. You're there. It's kind of a backhanded slap in your guys' face as competitors.
Oh, it's open-handed slap in my face. I mean, because it's like this is my manager. He's making decisions for his own interests. He's not playing to win. He's playing not to lose. His bet. Like what? Maybe, he had other issues, obviously, but when you read the report, it's like, it's deep, man. It's deep. And I highly recommend people to read the Dowd report because you see how, like, he had all kind of rings in different cities. And I mean, this guy had no remorse. I mean, and he jeopardized a lot of people. And so what, but yes, take the numbers. Hall of Fame player. So if you just purely numbers, but so the Hall, let's just say the voters, they have to decide like what they want the Hall to mean, because the Hall is a museum too. You could tell the story of Rose and Bonds and all these players in the Hall. You can still tell it. It's like the question, you want to enshrine it, Because when you enshrine it, now you're represented. Now it's etched in gold. Now it's all these things that it means something very different to the families, to the kids, to the game. You're going to have one guy in the hall and then have the Black Sox over here in 1919 that threw the World Series. It's kind of tough to reconcile. So, I'm not saying this is an easy call because it's not like the steroid juicer guys that their stats are what got them in, and it's very clear that that's why they, why they got in, right? It's a little different than like, this guy had the numbers are his numbers. Okay, this is one of the greatest hitters of all time, no question about it. But it's unfortunate that after the fact, when he was already all set in, he wants to go down this road.
Like shoeless Joe Jackson to me that's crazy too, right? Like that's 100 years ago, like.
Right. And a great player, no doubt. And, so it's like, for me, you have to look at steroids, sign stealing, all these scandals around baseball, the gambling. But gambling is, you just are totally undermining the game where people don't believe this is real because people are just throwing games and you don't buy it. I mean, they in the story, they said the scoreboard went out in Cincinnati at one point and he needed to know the scores and stuff for the other games while he was managing so he had some guy was in the stands giving him hand signals to let him know what the scores were of the other games. So see who was up or down. I mean, this guy was like, it
was elaborate.
Yeah, this was elaborate, man. This was no like, I just bet on one game. I mean, even the car he got when he got his, his winning hit, that was like held by one of the bookies and stuff like that because he owed this guy all this money. I mean, it's like mind blowing when you read this report. I
saw you wrote a big article on it, so I was going through your article that you read too, that you wrote, and I was looking at it.
Yeah. Put it on. Yeah, check it out. Welcome to Glanville. You could just find me on Substack, and I kind of emptied the notebook on this one, like 3,000 words, but I know it's not simple. I do know that.
I know it's always controversial given your personal take anyway. Yeah. I always give takes that aren't comfortable talking about. People always, JB, you're a hater. Nah, you actually have hands-on experience in this thing. No one else does. So your take is unbelievable. I appreciate it. Smitty, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. It's you kind of just now a few minutes ago you brought up like steroids and kind of that's like a different lane as well. So I got to ask you this though. Barry Bonds, is he Hall of Fame or not? In your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with this. I know that they haven't been putting him in. And the thing is, like, look, I have a very specific problem with PEDs, right? And on a whole lot of levels, right? Now, and even though I say Rose probably did more in certain ways, gambling when you're like, this game isn't real kind of thing. That was the PEDs, these individual choices that had this ripple effect. Because just think about me as a player, right? I'm going in trying to keep a job as a center fielder, and now the center fielders are all hitting 60 home runs. I don't have a job, right? And so there's a direct correlation to my ability to be in the sport because of these guys' choices. I'm facing pitchers that are juiced up and pitching at 40 years old. I'm competing not just against players on the other team. I'm competing against guys on my team for a job, and I definitely lost the job. The guy who failed a couple of times, right? So it's like there's like the direct personal thing. That's a very different story than like the bird's eye view. I watch guys in the minor leagues like work hard, play honestly, play clean, and lose out to a guy that like juiced. You'll never know his name, but he got 3 years in the big leagues. My roommate didn't. So they're like, and like the thing with players like let's say Bonds, Clement, whoever, it's like you always hear these stories about, well, there was a time where he was really great. He was already in.
I was going to ask you that.
First of all, do we know when they started? I mean, who am I supposed to believe? That's number one. And number two, let's just digest that for a second. Wait a minute. You were already the best player in baseball, and then you still took juice? You still, like, that's worse. That's worse, dude. You are greedy. You are already 4 times better than me, and then you're still going to do that? Like, come on, man. It's like you have all the privilege in the world as an athlete that's dominating, and now you're just greedy. So I don't know the lines. I also hear a lot that people say like, well, this guy who was juicing hit a home run off a pitcher that was juicing. So it's like all fair. It's like, right. You realize you're making the argument against a guy who didn't cheat, didn't do it. Yeah. So it's like, what are you talking about? Like the hypotheticals. And I think as a player, I think a lot of players that didn't choose to juice kind of feel like people talk over them. and like they don't exist, and you're a little afraid to say something because it's like, it's like glass houses. You might say something and people start calling you out. So I think that's the challenge that you have.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Are you on the side? What side are you on when you hear these debates that, well, it doesn't matter, it's still an impossibility to hit a baseball. It doesn't matter. The strength has nothing to do with the hand-eye. What side are you on when you hear that debate?
That's ludicrous. Okay. Because okay, I was a first round draft pick. All right. I can hit a fastball. Give me 50 more feet on my hit. Oh yeah. And by the way, it's not just about strength. It's about recovery. It's about like the fact that your confidence is like, oh, I'm never going to get out. That matters because so I talked to a teammate of mine past day that took steroids, and he said, I never felt that doubt that you feel 3 times a week against the best in the world, because you're going up against the best in the world. And that little bit of doubt, like I might not get to that fastball, is the difference between a strikeout and a ball in the gap. And if you never feel that way, you never feel like you're invincible, that's an advantage. Just like it is like a workout after the game, workout before the game, never get tired. So yeah, I'll put strength in that category, but that's not just the difference. And so you're not talking about comparing the superstar MVP versus some dude in junior high school. You're comparing guys that are 1%, 0.01% different. The difference between like Barry Bonds and this guy and that guy is not that big down when you come down to it. It's like that. So, you're
saying he was already elite ball striker. Like he's going to hit he's unbelievable. And now he does that. And it's like, it's a
huge advantage.
Dude, you just need 1%. You just need 1%. I mean, just do the math on like, if I got 1% more hits or took 1% more fastballs, or like, that's the game. It is that fine tuned. And so
when Brett Boone came on here and said he's the greatest hitter of a baseball he's ever seen in his life, and Brett was very good. You were very good. Is he? Do you agree to that?
I don't know what to call Bond. Like a lot of the players, I say they're great performers because it's like I don't know what they did. That's the sad thing about it, because the whole game gets impacted because of these choices. People have doubt about who's real. I mean, I remember right after it, every time a guy hit a home run, oh, he's a juicer. You just didn't even know what was real.
Right.
That is horrible. That's horrible for the game. And so, yeah, okay, I'll give you an example. Barry Bonds, we went to spring training. Mark Grace, I was with the Cubs. We're watching batting practice at Scottsdale Community College, wherever it was in Scottsdale. And we were leaning up against the cage, and Bonds just hitting one ball off the other. I think he hit like 8 home runs in a row, and it was just easy. And he was like, "That's the best." Grace was like, "That's the best player I've ever seen." So I understand it. But the choices that these players made, and like I said, I actually understand how they happen. I'm not saying that I can't understand in a hyper competitive environment. It's just that they made the choice to taint whatever they did before or after. That's just the truth of it. Right. That was their choice. And because I can't vouch for you when you were clean or when you weren't, that's your fault. That is your choice. No, so I don't know.
Now, just for clarity, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barry Bonds technically never tested positive for steroids, right?
Right. And that was because everything came from an investigation, which Major League Baseball deemed as a, quote, positive, not in its testing sense. But it's there's many players that went down because they're investigations, whether it's Game of Shadows or Balco or all these other things. So that is, and like I said, I don't know what Bonds did or didn't do from the standpoint of like, all the things he did before or after or whatever. It's like, I'm always like mindful of that. But the fact is, like, investigations are what brought these guys down.
That's Mitchell report and all that stuff that was
Mitchell report,
1,000-page, whatever it was.
Exactly.
But we called it the steroid era, though, right?
Oh yeah, and that's what it was. I mean, the steroid era. And look, Jose Canseco ended up one of the more credible people in all this, right? Ironically, like he seemed like, who's this guy? But he ended up, when you read his book, you're like, wow, this is detailed. And by the way, this whole idea of like, oh, I accidentally took. Okay, well, the fact is, like, I tripped and I fell on this needle, and wow, I just hitting 75 home runs. Like it's like, come on, dude. Like so
Harlem Nights, huh?
But when you read Jose Canseco's book, you realize like this is a regimen, man. This is science. This is like next level. This is like you have to work out religiously around it to make it like this isn't like, oh, I didn't realize what I was doing.
Right.
And I'm not saying like there's not tainted examples. It's just like you don't get that result consistently without actually being really dedicated to it.
No doubt.
And so look, I have more sympathy. I played with guys like, okay, grew up in the Dominican Republic, didn't have running water. He was like exposed to this stuff when he was 14. His career was flatlining in AAA. He's taking care of his brother, his sister, his mom, his entire family. He's the ticket out of poverty. Okay. I can understand that. Right. I'm not saying it's still good, but I get that. You can't make that case to me when you're already the best in the world. You're already privileged. You already had every advantage. Like, you're just straight up selfish and greedy at that point. And I'm not saying I don't even understand why, because you're in a hyper competitive environment. Yeah. You're just trying to find an edge. So like I said, I understand it. I do, but I just don't give people hall passes.
I love it. I love it. Last thing I got for you, I can't think of enough, Doug. It's been unbelievable. Let me ask you this. Right now, starting a team or franchise today, as it currently sits, and that's Ohtani not pitching as we are today.
Yeah.
You taking Judge or Ohtani to start your program?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. Oh, wow. To start your franchise today. Who's younger? I think Ohtani's younger, right?
I think, yeah, they're close.
I think he's younger. Yeah, I think he's younger. So I'll go with Ohtani because he could pitch, you know.
So you have that in your wheelhouse. So even though he's not right now, you have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're getting like two players in one, kind of like in a sense.
You are. Two great players in one.
That's unbelievable.
All stars.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Man, Doug, I can't thank you enough.
This is amazing. One of my favorite interviews ever. Yeah,
it is mine as well, man. I thank you. Can't thank you enough. What do you got going in the fire right now? What do you got cooking every day? Like, what's your day to day?
Well, I write like 2 or 3 times a week for my Substack. I just did one on the bulletin board that was over my bed growing up, and all the fan stuff I pinned on there. Today, I'm releasing a piece on when Jose Alvarado of the Phillies. He got banned 80-game suspension for PEDs, and they said it was an accident, whatever it was. I don't care about the reasoning. But I'm writing about the fact. I don't know if you remember, there was a kid that was imitating him in the stands.
Oh yeah,
12-year-old, and that was kind of like reminded me. I was a Philly fan growing up, and it kind of reminded of me. And I just speculated in this article about what's that conversation he has to have now about to that kid, Like, I think that's what I'm thinking about, because I was that fan. I was a 12-year-old Philly fan, and now your kind of hero has this like blemish, and it's actually pretty sympathetic to even Alvarado. I don't try to like bash people in that sense. I try to like say that there's maybe an opportunity for Alvarado to kind of make right or just do something positive with it, and he might actually get something out of it. So that's sort of where I'm going.
No doubt, man. Keep killing it, man. I can't thank you enough. Hopefully everything's good, you and the family, and hopefully we have you on again towards the end of the season, October maybe.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. All right, JB.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Man, great. That's one of my favorite interviews, bro. I'm going to be honest.
I mean, he gave great just responses. He kept it real, didn't hold anything back, gave stories, well-spoken, just like everything you would want. He knocked it out the park. No pun intended.
You can't ask a cat, and you can't do nothing but respect his take. Like,